Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ganatvam Samsaradava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganapam Raptasya Kalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanma Diramaja Nado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Truptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swatana Truptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Kritaiva Trupte Bhajata Shareva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shiradikama Gabayara Param Madhurya Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Madhurya Lila Pratikshana Swa Dhanalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Charanarvindam Ne kunjayo no rati kelisidai Chayali bhir Apekshaneya Nikundayo Jalibirjukti apekshaniya Tatratirakya Ativalabhasya Vande Gurashi Charanarvrinda Sakshat Haritena Shamasta Shastre Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhavi Sakyararitena Shamasta Shastre Kintu Prabharja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Yayam Stubam Tasya Yashasti Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Yayam Stubam Tasya Yashasti Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Gadadhar Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Shri Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radhe Radha, Jaya Radha Nilamadhav, Radha Nilamadhav Radhe.
नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले भ्रजमानम् यशोदाभियोलुकलाब्धवमानम् परामृष्टमत्यन्ततो धृत्यगोप्या Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. रुदन्तमुहुर्नेत्रयुग्मं रुजन्तं कराम्बुजयुग्मेन शातङ्कनेत्रम् मुहुश्वासकं पात्रिरेखाङ्ककण्ठा स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिबद्धम् इति द्रक्ष्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तम् आख्यापयन्तम् ताडिये शीतज्ञेषु भक्तिर्जितत्वं पुनः प्रेमतस्तं तथा वृत्तिवन्दे Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षावधिं वा न च न्यम्रनेहं वरेशदपिहा इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपाल बालं सदा मे मनसा विरास्तं किमन्ये इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपाल बालं हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे इदं ते मुखं भोजम् अत्यन्तनीलय व्रतं कुन्तलय स्निग्धरक्तस्य गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बारक्ताधरं मे मनस्य विरास्तं मालं लक्ष्यलभ्ये नमो देव दामोदरानन्त विष्णो प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजालविमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्ट्यातिदिनं बतानु ग्रहनिशा मध्यं मे दक्षिदृश्या कुबेरात्मजो बद्धमृत्वैव यद्वत् त्वया मुचिता भक्तिभाजपृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकाम्य प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेस्ति दामोदरेह नमस्तेस्तु धाम्ने स्फुरद्दीप्तिधाम्ने त्वदीयोदरायाथा विश्वस्य धाम्ने नमो राधिकायाय त्वदीया प्रियाय नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकायाय त्वदीया प्रियाय नमो नन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya. Jaya Radha Nila Madhurade. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra, Jaya. Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya. Gauranitai, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya
Shri Damodar ki jai. जय विष्णुपाद परम से प्रभा जगाचार्य सूत्र शिशिमार इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विविधि सांस्त प्रकाचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि गौर प्रियजन कृष्ण प्रेम भक्ति दत्त पतित पावन हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभयचरविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज शील प्रभुपाद जी की जय। श्री गौरिया गुरु वर्गापति उद्धार की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास गुण सतगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नामाचार्य शीला हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत गुरु वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम सचनंदन श्रीमन गौरांग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावृनाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद निदांग ट्वेंटी बुक श्री विष्णु सेव की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजबम वृंदावन मथुराधाम की जय। दिलोशिव श्री श्री राधा नीला माधव की जय। श्री श्री राधा दामोदर की जय। यशोदा दामोदर माई की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्रधाम की जय। परम करुणा श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथ धाम की जय। जगंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेत भक्त विंध्य की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रेमानंद हरि बोल। All glories to some glories. All glories to some glories. All glories to some glories. All glories. All glories. All glories. Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Hari Bol.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Pralada Radadaine. Hiranyakashipu Vaksha. Shilatankanakalae.
Jaya Silatankanakalae.
Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha. Yato yato yami tato Narasimha. Bahe Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha. Simhamudim Sharanam Prapadye. Avakara Kamala Varenaka Adbhuta Shringa Lalita Hiranyakashipu Dhanuvringa Keshavadita Narayupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्ना विनाशन कनु सिंगरे भगवान की जय। भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताय गौर प्रमानंदे हरि हरि। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारिवे सत्तवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारिवे सत्तवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रारिवे सत्तवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद।
तुलसी कृष्ण पियासी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ यही अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो
तुलसी कृष्ण पियासी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
जी तुम्हारा शरण लो में सारा वांछ पूर्ण होए।
तुम्हारा शरण लो सारा वांछ
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
कृपा करी करा तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुलसी कृष्ण पियासी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियुआ।
मोराए अभिलाष विलखंड दियावा।
नायन हेरी बो सदा युगा रूप राशि।
नयन हरिव सदा जुगाल रूपरा।
तुलसी कृष्ण पियासी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
निवेदनाधारो सखी अनुगाता करो सेवयाधिकारादि करने जदाति
सेवयाधिकार दिए करने जदाति
तुलसी कृष्ण पियासी नमो नमः दीन कृष्ण दासी कोई यही जेन मोरा होवे
दीन कृष्ण दासी को
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा जेन वासी तुलसी कृष्ण पियासी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
हानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्माहत्य कानि च तानि तानि पदक्ष्यन्ति पदक्षिणे पदे पदे
कानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्मा अत्यधिकानि तानि तानि प्राण शान्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
हे यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्माहत्य कानि चाहे तानि तानि पासयन्ति पदक्षिणे पदे पदे
कानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्मचर्यकानि तानि तानि प्राण शान्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
हे यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्माहत्य कानि चाहे तानि तानि पासयन्ति पदक्षिणे पदे पदे
कानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्मचर्यकानि तानि तानि प्राण शान्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Jai Tulsi Maharani.
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी. जय बिंदे देवी जय बिंदे देवी जय बिंदे देवी जय बिंदे देवी. जय भक्ति देवी जय भक्ति देवी जय भक्ति देवी जय भक्ति देवी.
Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shishi Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower, carry the himself of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapanam Vidyavadu Atmasna param param jayate. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Nam namakari baudha. Nija sarva shaktis. Tatra pita niyamita smarane nakala. Ita drushitava kripaya bhagavan mamapi. Kitanya sada hari na dhanam na janam na sundarim kabitamba jagari shakamaye mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatar bhakti rahaitu ki tvayi ainanda tanuja kinkaram paritamam visame bhavam buddho kripaya tava par pankaja stita duli sadrisham vichintaya nayanam galorashrudharaya vadanam gadugadarudhaya gira pulakarinchitam vapukara tavanamagrahane bhavisyati Jugaitam nimishena Chakyusha prarusaitam Shunyaitam jagat sarvam Govinda virayiname Aslishava padaratam pinastumam Adarshanar marmahatam karotuva Jata tata vidadatu tampatu Matranastastu saivana para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Khastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Prudayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Ne Vishesha Shunnavadi Patsatari Shatarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays, the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names, like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord on straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion, service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet some or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me out from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so. Even if hundreds me rightfully by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Khastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna is one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kand. 9. To instruct the fearless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prem. Now let's offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, the worship of the Lord. They are just our desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditions. Devancha kalpatarubhascha
Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai.
Shri Guru Pranam Mangal Charan Ki Jai.
Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachikamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitamsya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Namaste Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namini Shivarsavani Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantahar Arine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Shasha Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padamba Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhaumashri Jagannatayate Namaha Nosakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patittanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premopadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Mandamate Gati Matsarva Swapadambojo Radha Madan Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simasidanstito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevya Manusmarami Shiman Rasa Rasaram Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venusmanir Gobir Gopinatakshti Eshtana Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. So every Saturday and Sunday now we're going to go right away into the Srimad Bhagavatam and the class because we are giving special classes Saturday and Sunday for budding children. So, of course, the adults can learn also from these lectures. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Grantaraj Ki Jai. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, verse number 10 again. Smaran Vishva Srijam Isho Vigyapitam Ahoksajaha Virajam Atapat Svena Teja Saisam Vivrittaye. Smaram, remembering. Vishwasrijan, of the demigods, entrusted with the task of cosmic construction. Isha, the Supreme Lord. Vigyapitam, as he was prayed for. Ahokshaja, the transcendence. Virajam, the gigantic universal form. Atapat, considered thus. Swena, by his own. Tejasa, energy. Esam, for them. Rivittaye, for understanding. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord is the supersoul of all the demigods, entrusted with the task of constructing the cosmic manifestation. Being thus prayed to by the demigods, he, meaning Krishna, thought to himself and thus manifested the gigantic form, meaning the Virat Rupa, for their understanding. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Now this whole section of the third canto is all about how the material world was created and how it is maintained and how it is reabsorbed into the body of Mahavishnu, waiting for the next expansion or creation, so-called creation of the material world. There's no other scripture in the world that explains this with such detail and precision. You can study the Bible, you can study the Quran, you can study the Buddhist writings, you can study the Jain writings, you can study the Sikh writings, you can study the anything you want. You're not going to find this explanation anywhere else. Right? This is the uniqueness of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And besides that, it also gives a complete explanation of the spiritual world. That definitely you will not find anywhere else. So there are sketchy, I would call very rudimental explanations of how the world was created in the Bible, but not with this detail and precision. So if you want to be educated, you have to read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. If you want to be fooled and misled, you can read these other books if you want to. I'm not saying that the whole Bible is false or the Quran is false, but they're sketchy. They do not have a complete explanation. You will only find a complete explanation in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so in the purport, Prabhupada says, the impersonalists are captivated by the gigantic universal form of the Supreme. They think that the control behind this gigantic manifestation is imagination. Intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effect. If you just learn this one sentence, let's repeat it because it's very important if you want to be a real scientist and you want to be a real, let's say, erudite thinker. Intelligent persons, please repeat, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. Now, what does this mean? Well, we're living in a world where we see effects, and we can understand a lot about the cause by analyzing the effects. Just like, let's say you see a great painting by a great painter, right? So let's say you look at the Mona Lisa. Now, what can you learn from that? Well, people have been looking, if you go in museums and you look on the internet, people have been looking at the sublime little smile of the Mona Lisa for at least 5 centuries now. Have you ever seen the Mona Lisa? Okay, but you've seen the Mona Lisa, yeah. So people have been looking at it, giving interpretations about it, and it's a very impelling thing to see. So there's 2 ways of seeing a great painting. One is you notice the lights and the shades and the lips and the eyes and the ears and the nose and so forth. Now, the second way of seeing it is because you're so intrigued by this painting made by some artist, you can also think about, if you think the painting is great, then you also can understand that the artist is great. Right? How did he make such a thing that is intriguing people for 5 centuries? Well, therefore, there's 2 ways of looking at nature. One is to be completely amazed. I mean, we spoke about this yesterday. The distances between planets in the material universe is astounding. It's unbelievable that there's such distances, right? And that the universe is so big. And it's only one universe. There are many other universes, according to Bhagavatam. And there's an infinite number of jivas in every universe. And all of those universes put together, and all the number of jivas in all those universes, it only represents 1/4 of Krishna's domain. 3/4 of the spiritual world, where everyone is eternal. And it's much, much bigger than the material world. And there are many, many more eternally liberated souls. We are in a minority because we did something that was wrong. We walked away from Krishna. Just like in the United States, there's at least more than 1 million people that are in jail because they did something wrong. But the massive number of people are not in jail, right? It's the same thing. A small number of people, like 1/4 of the total number of jivas, are in the material world, in the prison, and the warden of the prison is Durga Mata. But the most of the living entities are in the material world, and they never fell down. They never made a mistake, you say. So we're in a minority. Now, here it says, you can understand the cause by analyzing the effects or observing the wonders of the effects. Yeah, anyone, whether it's Einstein, whether it's Isaac Newton, they were all amazed at the structure and precision of the orderly working of the universe. And they were just in awe. But they only, Isaac Newton saw it in 2 ways. Einstein only saw it in 1 way. He said, I'm just overwhelmed by this, what I see, the order, the precision, the way things are functioning. I'm just overwhelmed by seeing it. Isaac Newton was more of a spiritual person, so he actually spoke about God. So we see there are actually 2 ways of seeing things. One is you look at the effect, that's the painting, and you're amazed by it. You think this is just wonderful. And then the second way of looking at it is, well, if this is so wonderful, just see how wonderful the guy is, or the lady is that made this, that painted this. They did it in such a way that I'm just overwhelmed. So there's 2 ways of seeing, and that's what this verse says. And it says, intelligent persons, however, notice it doesn't just say persons, it says intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. This should be memorized by everyone, and you should think about it every day, so that when you look at nature, you're not looking at it like Einstein, who only sees one aspect, that is the effect. You have to look at it like Isaac Newton, who saw both aspects, not only the effect, but also it gives a lot of information, if you look at it carefully, about the cause. See? So this is the way you should teach your children to see things. In fact, you can't unless you see things like that, right? Is that right, Prabhu? Yeah. So we're learning in the class how to see things. Now, the word for philosophy in Sanskrit is, you know what the word for philosophy is in Sanskrit? No? Anybody know? Huh? No. Anybody know what the word for philosophy is in Sanskrit? Boy, I've spoken about this many times. I'm surprised. Huh? No. The word for, okay, what does philosophy mean? That's the word for philosophy in English, right? What does philosophy mean? You know?
Yeah, I mean, something related to God only, right?
Okay. Well, it's very obliquely related to God, but okay. Philosophy is a Greek composite word. It comes from the Greek language. So it basically means love of wisdom. Okay? Philos, osophies, means the love or the appreciation of wisdom. Okay, that's the meaning in English of the word philosophy. Now, the word for philosophy in Sanskrit is darshan, how you see. That's much more important than love of wisdom. How you see. Now, a mother sees her child with love and protection, right? And a pervert sees the same child as the mother, but with the thought of exploiting that child for their own sense gratification. You see? That's the whole point. How you see, it determines the way you conceive of your life and who you are and what the world is and what are the goals you want in the world. So the pervert, he sees the same child as the mother, but with the desire to kidnap the child, make it a victim for his sense gratification. But the mother sees the child with love and protection. So therefore, the word darshan is much more profound than the word philosophy. That's why there's so many speculators in this world, always coming out with different philosophical explanations. But actually, it's philosophy. They're trying to fool themselves and you. And today we're going to have a fantastic example of this. So here it says, intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. So if you see the value of the cause of Michelangelo's Mona Lisa painting, then you begin to appreciate Michelangelo. You say, wow, this guy's really fantastic person. So, you know how much the Mona Lisa would cost if you wanted to buy it today? Do you have any idea?
Maybe $1 million.
It runs into hundreds of millions of dollars, could even be $1 billion. Yeah. That's how much people have been fascinated by it for 5 centuries. You see? Now, when he painted it, it wasn't worth $1 billion, right? You know, someone said, well, I give you, 50 liras for it, Italian money. But now, people would be willing to pay up to $1 billion to get that, So that means that Michelangelo was not an ordinary person. He was an exceptional person, and he was. He was a scientist. He was an artist. He was a philosopher. He was a very, very. But he got the Sistine Chapel wrong, because he was being tutored by the Pope at that time. So he painted a picture of God who's an old man with wrinkles and white hair, and you could see by his hands and his face he was an old guy, right? So that's completely wrong. But what can you expect? They They were reading the Bible. They were not reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. So they end up getting it all wrong. So now it says, for example, the individual human body does not develop from the womb of the mother independently, but because the living entity, the soul, is within the body. Without the living entity, a material body cannot automatically take shape or develop. If you understand just this thing, you become more intelligent than all the scientists that are doing all kinds of research today. Now, I want to show you something that's very interesting. There's a scientist, and there was an article about him. It says, the new physics theory of life. And an MIT physicist has proposed the provocative idea that life exists because of the law of increasing entropy drives matter to acquire lifelike physical properties. Right there, that's complete nonsense. It's not true at all. There's no proof of it, nothing. Jeremy England, a 31-year-old physicist at MIT, thinks that he has found the underlying physics driving the origin and evolution of life. You know, there's a Jeremy England every 5 or 10 years. You know, the people that, oh, he's the next Einstein, you know. But the Jeremy England is an idiot, right? And now you're going to see why. Catherine Taylor, for Quanta magazine, January 22, 2014, wrote an article that says, why does love exist? And then she writes, popular hypotheses credit a primordial soup. Remember, I've spoken about primordial soup before, right? A bolt of lightning and a colossal stroke of luck. But if a provocative new theory is correct, luck may have little to do with it. In other words, up until now, they're basing their theory of how life started by some magical luck that happened. There was one primordial soup, and it got struck by lightning, and all of a sudden, the first amoeba, the first one-cell living entity was born. This is like crazy. This is like Disneyland stuff, right? Now she's saying that, but if a provocative new theory is correct, in other words, it's not correct yet, right? Luck may have little to do with it. Instead, according to the physicists proposing the idea, the origin and subsequent evolution of life follow from the fundamental laws of nature and should be as unsurprising as rocks rolling downhill. This is all nonsense. It's just a bunch of words that they put together that sound convincing, but it's false. None of this is real. And by the way, this was written in January 22nd, 2014. Have you heard of Jeremy England today? No. He hasn't proved his theory. He's getting a lot of money. Yeah, because when you come up with a theory that seems to be, that may support Darwinism and the whole idea that the God did not create the world, it happened by accident, they jump on it, right? It's just like when a vulture sees a dead body, it jumps on it right away to eat it, right? So these people are jumping on the Jeremy England that maybe he's going to be the next Einstein and tell us, how the world started. But it's just a dead body. Jeremy England has a dead head. Right. So then it says, from the standpoint of physics, there is one essential difference between living things and inanimate clumps of carbon atoms. The former, meaning the living things, tend to be much better at capturing energy from their environment and dissipating that energy as heat. Jeremy England, a 31-year-old assistant professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Oh my God, he's at MIT. That means he must know what he's talking about, right? look at all his credentials here, has derived a mathematical formula that he believes explains this capacity. The formula, based on established physics, indicates that when a group of atoms is driven by an external source of energy, like the sun or chemical fuel, and surrounded by a heat bath, like the ocean or atmosphere, it will often gradually restructure itself in order to dissipate increasingly more energy. This could mean that under certain conditions, like lightning at the North Pole striking the soup, amino acid soup, under certain conditions, matter inexorably acquires the key physical attribute associated with life. What a bunch of nonsense is this, right? But it sounds so convincing because they know how to juggle words and juggle ideas. Well, fast forward till today, Jeremy England did not give the proof that any of this stuff is true, right? And he won't, because it's a nonsense theory. If you know what the law of entropy is, he's basing everything on the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, which says that if you put a whole bunch of molecules in a closed tank and you input heat to it, what happens is that the molecules expand in a unpredictable way, and they become chaotic. All right. So they're saying that everything in the universe is chaotic like that. It's the universe is just expanding, and the molecules are just expanding in undetermined ways, and there is basically chaos. However, everything living is going the opposite way. It's connecting the molecules, and living things are coming out of it, right? So the growth of living things is opposite to the law of thermodynamics, or the so-called law of thermodynamics. Okay, so now we're going to fast forward to what seems to be much more realistic. And this was written about by Bhakti Swarup Damodar in his book, The Scientific Basis of Krishna Consciousness. This is a small book. It's very, how many pages is it? It's not even 50 pages, right? But if you read this book, you will have more knowledge than Jeremy England and everybody else that's trying to create life out of chemicals. So, Maharaj says, when we think calmly and carefully about this wonderful universe, we can see that everything is working under the control of a supreme brain. I didn't hear Jeremy England say anything like that. I didn't hear Einstein say anything like that, right? The arrangements in nature are perfectly ordered. Things would be at random without the careful planning of a scientific and engineering brain. So what is Jeremy England trying to prove? He's trying to prove that there was no scientific brain and no engineering brain behind this. It's all based on the law of entropy, which increasing chaos, and somehow or other, in the process of increasing chaos of molecules and atoms, a one-time thing happened, and they came together and they produced a living entity. See? So you tell me how you can create something organized out of chaos. It's impossible. Right? Mathematically, it's impossible. And another Krishna conscious scientist, Dr. Thompson, he proved it mathematically that matter cannot organize itself. It's impossible. But yet, they're still trying to prove it today. It is a common understanding that there is a cause behind each action. A machine cannot run without an operator. Modern scientists are very proud of automation, but there is no scientific brain behind automation. But there is a scientific brain behind automation also. So in other words, all the machines you see, like this is a type of machine, microphone. This is made by intelligent people, right? It didn't just fall together by chaos, right? And it's being maintained by intelligent people. Like today, one of our cooking equipment did not function, so parts went down, and he couldn't turn it on. It didn't light up. So he called Janavatsal. He said, "You know what's wrong with this?" He said, "No." "What is wrong with it?" He said, "It doesn't turn on." He said, "Oh, it doesn't turn on." Well, it could be one thing or two things or three things. Well, he named this couple things might be. So he tested the first thing. That was maybe the electric socket is malfunctioning. Not that there's no electricity. There is electricity because other machines were working, right? But maybe there's some disconnect in the functioning of the electric socket. Now, he's not saying the generator or anything like that. He just talked about the electric socket. So what did he do? He went and got an extension cord and used the extension cord to connect with another electric socket that was in the kitchen. And as soon as he did that, he told Parth, "Turn it on. Let's see if it works." He turned it on and it worked. So his hunch was right. It was only the electric socket, you see. So this is intelligence, right? He used his intelligence because he had to test what is not working. So the first thing he tested, and the easiest thing is, maybe the electric socket is not working. It's not the energy. The energy is there. Electricity is there because there were lights on and everything. But maybe just that one thing is not working. He tested it and right away he got it. You see. So cannot run without an operator. Modern scientists are very proud of automation, but there is a scientific brain behind automation also, right? There's a scientific brain behind this microphone, behind this carpet, behind look, you see all this carved wood here? It took us 3 years to get it and put it up. We had to wait 3 years before we could put these things out. And they were all hand carved in India, in Mumbai, right? So everything here that you see was produced by somebody, an intelligent person. The carpet, the mridangas, the djembe, what do you call that?
Speaker?
The speaker, yeah, the camera, the lights, those pieces, the squares in the ceiling, everything. Nothing happened by itself, right? And yet the scientists are trying to tell us that, everything started by itself. That nature produced everything. This is a crazy idea, right? Then Maharaj says, even Albert Einstein agreed that there is a perfect brain behind all the natural physical laws. Well, he didn't say that there's God who has a perfect brain. He said there's a perfect brain, meaning there's something beyond it that organized all this. When we talk about brain and operator, these terms imply a person, right? There's a perfect brain behind all of it. That means there has to be a person. How come Einstein insisted that God does not exist? At least Isaac Newton said there is a God. Einstein said there's no God. He rejected the idea of God. Okay? They cannot be impersonal. If you're talking about brain and operator, it can't be impersonal. It has to be a person. One may inquire who this person is. He is Lord Sri Krishna, the supreme scientist and supreme engineer, under whose kind will the whole cosmos is working. Sri Krishna says, the whole cosmic order is under me. By my will, it is manifested again and again, and by my will, it is annihilated at the end. Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 8th verse. Prakritim swam abhastabhya visrajami punak punah Bhuttagramam imam krishnam avasar prakritir vasat. So you see, that now you can understand what a great person Bhakti Swarup Maharaj was. Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. He's a scientist. He's got a PhD, but he became a devotee. And now he's explaining the truth about how everything started in this universe. Of course, the spiritual world is eternal, right? So you don't have to talk about how it started, right? But the material world has a start, a middle, and an end, and then a restart, a middle and an end, and then another restart, middle and end, right? So he's explaining the steps, how it happened. It's all in Bhagavatam in this third canto, right? Now let us look at a few samples from the Lord's creation, and upon contemplating these exemplary aspects, one should develop a better understanding and appreciation of the existence of the most powerful brain. Wow, that's exactly what we learned today. Intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. That's exactly what he's going to do now. See? Because he's a scientist himself, because he's got a PhD, he can do it. And we're going to see now what he talks about. Lord Shri Krishna, it says, a better understanding and appreciation of the existence of the most powerful brain, Lord Shri Krishna. The sun that we see daily is the nearest star. It is 100 Earth diameters across and is 93 million miles away from the Earth. Every day, the sun supplies the solar system. That means not just our galaxy, the whole solar system. Because according to Vedic knowledge, there's only one sun, and all the other things that we see twinkling at night, they are either planets or stars, and they're simply reflecting back the light of the sun. Right? That's why space is dark. If they were all suns, do you think space would be dark? No way, right? So it's confusing. They say they're all stars, like the sun. But the sun is illuminating the whole universe, right? And whatever the stars are doing, they're just reflecting back a little bit of light. That's why when you get out into space, it's dark. Okay. Look that up. Why is space dark? Look it up on the internet. Why is space dark? Outer space. The sun that we see daily is the nearest star. It is 100 Earth diameters across and is 93 million miles away from the Earth. Every day the sun supplies the solar system with tremendous amount of heat, light, and energy. The very tiny fraction of the sun's energy that falls on the Earth, estimated at about 5 parts in 100 million, is about 1,000 times greater than all the energy used in the world's industries. So every day we get a very tiny bit of the sun's energies, but that's much greater than 5 parts in 100 million, or about 100,000 times greater than all the energy used in the world's energy industries. Did you just find something?
Yeah.
What does it say?
Can you read it, please?
Go ahead. Put the microphone closer to your mouth. Put the microphone closer to your mouth. Go ahead.
There are two things to think about here. Let's take the easy one first and ask, why is the daytime sky blue here on Earth? That is a question we can answer.
What's the question? Say it again.
Why is space black?
Okay, that's the question. Why is space black, meaning outer space, where there's millions and billions of stars that are supposed to be suns according to the scientists, right? Go ahead.
That is a question. Okay, the second question, why is the daytime sky blue here on Earth?
Okay, that's a secondary thing. Just talk about why outer space is black.
Wait, where does it say? Okay. The blue color of the sky is a result of the scattering process. At night, when that part of Earth is facing away from the sun, space looks black because there's no nearby bright source of light, like the sun, to be scattered. If you're on the moon, which has no atmosphere, the sky would be black both night and day. You
Okay,
can
we can't understand it. You read it, Prabhu.
Yes,
Come on.
my
Just
voice.
read it slowly and pronounce every word.
You want to read?
Yeah, and why does the space appear black? And there is an answer here. Because space is a near perfect vacuum,
Near perfect vacuum. Okay. Go ahead.
meaning it has exceedingly few particles. There is virtually nothing in the space between stars and planets to scatter light to our eyes.
There you go.
So,
That's it?
with no light reaching the eyes, we see black.
Okay. We see black. It doesn't mean that it's black. We see black. See? Okay. So the total energy the sun emits in a single second would be sufficient to keep 1 kilowatt electric fire burning for 10,000 million years. Put in a different way, the energy that the sun emits in 1 second is greater than the whole amount of energy the human species has consumed throughout its entire history. This is amazing, right? Yet, it is only one of the countless number of stars floating in the sky in every direction. With the material scientific brain, the thermal, electrical, and nuclear powerhouses have been made. These can supply heat, light, and energy to a small, limited extent. But Lord Krishna is supplying the whole planet with an unlimited source of energy just from one sun. Krishna says, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the of fire are also from me. And that's 15th chapter, 12th verse, Bhagavad Gita. The planets are revolving in a systematic path around the sun. Even within the smallest atom, the electrons are orbiting around the nucleus in a perfect manner. Thus, from the submicroscopic realm of the atom to the expanding reaches of the galactic objects, this material universe is running like intricate, well-oiled clockwork according to great natural physical laws and principles. Scientists have gained great acclaim for making a few spaceships, whereas Krishna effortlessly produces gigantic spaceships such as planets and stars, which are perfectly equipped and maintained. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Gam avishya cha bhutani darayam yaham ad ojasa. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. The laws made by the Supreme Brain always remain perfect. They are never violated. We never see the sun rising in the west and setting in the east. No, because it rises in the east every day and sets in the west, right? The colorful rainbow that we observe when the sun is shining during a shower, a rain shower, is only visible when the sun is behind the observer due to the laws of refraction. Also, each year, the seasons change quite periodically, producing symptoms unique to each person. So here, because he's a scientist, he can come up with these examples that are very impelling, very, very pertinent. So he says, the colorful rainbow. Do you see a rainbow every day? No. You only see it when there's a special situation. Now he's going to say what it is. The colorful rainbow that we observe when the sun is shining during a shower is only visible when the sun is behind the observer due to the laws of refraction. So, what are the laws of refraction? We'd have to look that up. And because of that, if the sun is behind you and you're looking at the sky, you'll see a rainbow. Right? So later on, when the sun is not behind you, you won't see the rainbow. Now let us look into some aspects of the Lord's creation at the molecular level. So here, he looked on the macroscopic level, right? The energy. By the way, Einstein also came up with his theory, E equals mc squared, by focusing on sunlight. He knew that the sun is the origin of all energy in the universe. And studied sunlight, and he gave a different interpretation that everybody else had before him. That was the beginning of his fame, because he did that. He said that the sunlight is not simply rays of light. There are what he called photons. That comes close to what the sunlight actually is. There are pencils of light, and each pencil of light is a jiva. But he called it a photon. He doesn't believe in jivas, right, or in God. But he had that right. The sun is not just waves. There's something more to it. It's an infinite number of these, what he called photons, but actually infinite number of jivas who are emanating like pencils of light. Now let us look at some aspects of the Lord's creation at the molecular level. Chemists find that different colors in flowers are due to chemicals called anthocyanins, and the different aromas or perfumes of natural flowers are mostly due to chemicals called terpenes and terpenoid compounds. The molecular frameworks for these compounds range from very simple structures to very complex networks. Camphor, for example, is a terpenoid compound, and the characteristic odor of lemons is due to the molecule called limonin, which is one of the simple terpenes. Similarly, the characteristic colors in carrots and tomatoes are due to molecules called carotenoids, which are higher forms of terpenes. The molecular framework for each definite color or aroma is wonderfully unique. A little change in position of a few atoms in the molecule, a little variation in the geometry of the molecule, or a slight change in the size of the molecule can cause a color to change from orange to red, a mild, pleasing aroma to become repellent and pungent, and a flavor to change from sweet to bitter. In other words, he's saying just a little change in the molecular structure or the size of the molecule gives you a major difference right away. Right? On the other extreme, we find giant molecules such as proteins and nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, the building blocks of all living material bodies, which contain innumerable atoms made for a definite function. Similarly, the crystalline pattern of each different molecule is unique. The geometrical shape for sodium chloride, common salt, for example, is cubical. Charcoal, graphite, and diamonds are all derived from the same element, carbon, and yet the shining and transparent diamond is extremely hard, whereas graphite is soft, black, and opaque. This is due to the difference in the crystalline forms of these molecules. In the crystal lattice of the diamond, each carbon atom is tetrahedrally surrounded by 4 other carbon atoms at a distance of 1.54 angstroms. 1 angstrom is 10 to the minus 8 centimeters. It's like, it's so small you cannot even see it, right? In graphite, by contrast, the 3 bonds of each carbon atom are distorted so as to lie in the same plane, the 4th bond being directly perpendicularly to this plane to link with the carbon atom of the neighboring layer. Now look, he's a scientist. He's got a PhD. He got his PhD in chemical engineering or chemical something. So he's able to understand all these things and explain them. For us, it's just spaghetti right now. We don't understand what he's talking about exactly. But Prabhupada really appreciated this book. He was the first scientist who gave a clear-cut rebuttal of all the nonsense all the other scientists are doing in all their theories and so forth, right? Prabhupada really loved Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. He also was a very dear friend of mine. In this way, we can cite innumerable examples of molecular networks so fantastically and delicately arranged that chemists cannot but wonder about the most expert hand and brain who is making all these wonderful artistic arrangements in his laboratory. Say, what did we learn today? We learned intelligent persons, however, can estimate the value of the cause by observing the wonders of the effects. That's exactly what he's doing here. But because he's a scientist, he's got a PhD, he can read scientific papers and understand them, whether they're nonsense or they're real. And because he studied very carefully Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was tutored directly by Prabhupada. He was tutored by Prabhupada. Prabhupada spoke to him a lot and gave him the, let's say, leads that he could use to defeat the scientists. You understand? So he's not an ordinary person or ordinary devotee. He's a very exceptional devotee. Instead, the intelligence and the ability of the supreme scientist, Sri Krishna, are inconceivable, achintya. There is no scientist who can deny it. How can any chemist abstain from appreciating the wonderful works of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna? In Bhagavad Gita, we find one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. That is 8th chapter, 9th verse, Bhagavad Gita. Right? At best, scientists can only try to imitate the wonderful artistic works of the Supreme Lord. They cannot even do this properly, and most of their attempts lead to failure and disappointment. Well, that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, is... what's his name again? His name is Jeremy England. and all the others. There's millions of Jeremy Englands in the world nowadays, right? And it says, for example, Professor R.B. Woodward of Harvard, a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry, 1965, and Professor A. Eschenmoser of Zurich took 11 years to synthesize the vitamin B12 molecule. Although 99 scientists from 19 different countries were involved just to accomplish this one small task. Yet Krishna is making all these complex molecules at will. They found it took them 11 years and the help of hundreds and hundreds of other scientists to make one molecule, B12, that you can buy nowadays. You go to the supplement store, there's a B12, right? And you take it. It doesn't really help you that much because you're just making very expensive P, right? It might help a little bit, but not much because it's synthetically made. It's not the real deal, right? Interestingly enough, when scientists fail again and again in their attempts to make something, they consciously or unconsciously pray to God for help. Does this not indicate the existence of the supreme scientist, Lord Sri Krishna, and the natural subordinate position of all other living entities? A crude example is the explosion that occurred inside the Apollo 13 spacecraft during its attempt to land on the moon on April 11th, 1970. See, now he's giving examples of everything he's saying. The Apollo capsule was made by hundreds of scientific and technological brains and cost millions of dollars. No one could predict that there would be an explosion. When it happened, however, and the lives of the 3 astronauts were in danger, those involved in the mission requested the people on Earth to pray to God for the safe return of the astronauts. Such is the situation. At times of danger, most people tend to remember God, although at other times they forget him. See what a brilliant person Bhakti Sri Damodar Maharaj was. Now let us look into some very simple and graphic examples of the artistry of the Lord's creation. We see that among the lower forms of living entities, social organization is very smoothly maintained. For example, in a bee colony, the queen bee is nicely taken care of by the drones, the male bees, while the workers collect nectar from flowers all day long. It is quite amazing to consider how the bees, with their tiny bodies, can collect such a great amount of honey for themselves as well as for other living entities. In this way, the colony is maintained with beautiful order. Similarly, the loving relationship between a mother and her baby is quite clearly visible, even in very small forms of living entities. During the monsoon season in tropical countries, when there are torrents of rain, the small ants run to find shelter, carrying their eggs on their heads. The spider makes its wonderful webs with great architectural skill to serve as a shelter as well as to catch its prey for survival. Silkworms spin hundreds of yards of fine threads to form cocoons for their shelter during the pupa stage. Inside a tiny seed smaller than the size of a mustard seed, the whole potency of a big banyan tree is present. In this way, we can see the wonderful arrangements of the Supreme Lord, who is creating, maintaining, and guiding all living entities, small or big. Krishna says, furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being moving or unmoving that can exist without me. Bhagavad Gita 10:39. Bhagavad says, the main trouble with material scientists is that they generally neglect the most important and fundamental aspect of their inquiries. For example, when Newton saw the falling of the apple, he asked why and how the apple fell. However, he did not inquire who caused the falling of the apple. As an answer to his inquiry, he discovered the laws of gravitation. His answer was that the apple fell because of the laws of gravitation. But who made the laws of gravitation? Srila Prabhupada kindly explains that the apple did not fall while green, but while ripe. Therefore, Newton's gravitational theory was not enough to explain the falling of the atom. Whoa, this is big. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There is some other cause behind the total scene of the falling and thereby behind the law of gravitation. That cause is Lord Shri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita we find Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Krishna is the cause of all causes. Furthermore, scientists have to know that the little ability they have is also given by the Lord. Krishna says, Purusham Nrisu, I am the ability in man. By various, well, look how he's putting this all together, right? He's putting it all together based on Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada's instructions, right? Okay, I'm going to stop right there. But what we're going to do is, for homework next week, you have to look up and study DNA. Now, it's a big subject. You don't have to be an expert in it, but you should have a general idea of what is DNA, all right? And the scientists, they're claiming that, here's another idiot. Let's see, you see her picture here. Her name is Sarah A. Bates, MS and MA. Master of Science and Master of, MA Arts, yeah. Chief Office of Communications, National Human Genome Research Institute, NIH. Right. And what does she say? Is there anything more amazing? Is there a more amazing molecule than DNA? That's why your homework is to look up whatever you can figure out about the DNA. It makes each of us who we are. The more scientists understand it, the more we all understand ourselves, one another, and the world around us. For example, Did you know that we are all far more alike than we are different? In fact, the DNA from two people is 99.9% identical. With that shared blueprint guiding our development and forming a common thread across the world, the differing 0.1% contains variations that influence our uniqueness, which, when combined with our environmental and social contexts, give us our abilities, our health, our behavior. Notice she didn't mention Krishna at all there. How can one simple molecule contain so much mystery and wonder? She's admitting that they don't understand the DNA. They map it, they give you designs of it. Like, you go, you'll see there's hundreds of designs of the DNA. Let's see where it is. You can't see it so clearly here. Yeah. This is a design of DNA, right? But if you read what it is, it's just amazing. It's impossible that it happened by accident. Absolutely impossible. It's so complicated, right? So, you just heard what she says. How one single molecule contains so much mystery and wonder. We are only beginning. We are only to begin. This is after, 40, 50 years of studying it, right? We're only beginning to understand the answer to that question, which is what makes the study of DNA so exciting. Right? Okay, so now I'm going to read one other thing that's very interesting, and then if anyone did the homework for this week, you can read it now. This is an article by Andrew Pollock, May 13, 2016. Scientists are now contemplating the fabrication of a human genome, meaning they would use chemicals to manufacture all the DNA contained in human chromosomes. Whoa. In other words, they're going to be God now, right? This is 2016. The prospect is spurring both intrigue and concern in the life sciences community because it might be possible, such as through cloning, to use a synthetic genome to create human beings without biological parents. I mean, no God involved, no parents involved, right? While the project is still in the idea phase and also involves efforts to improve DNA synthesis. What did what's her name? Sarah A. Bates say? She said, "We are all." When did she write this? This is recently. She said, "We are only beginning to understand the answer to that question, which is what makes the study of DNA so exciting." Okay. While the project is still in the idea phase and also involves efforts to improve DNA synthesis in general, it was discussed at a closed-door meeting on Tuesday at Harvard Medical School in Boston. The nearly 150 attendees were told not to contact the news media or to post on Twitter during the meeting. Organizers said the project could have a big scientific payoff. In other words, we're going to make a lot of money from this if we do it, and would be a follow-up to the original Human Genome Project, which was aimed at reading the sequence of the 3 billion chemical letters in the DNA blueprint of human life. 3 billion chemicals. Wow. Look how complicated it is, right? The new project, by contrast, would involve not reading, but rather writing the human genome and synthesizing all the 3 billion units from chemicals. Yeah, fat chance you'll do that. Has any human, okay, now these are answers to pertinent questions. I looked them up. I'll tell you where you can find it. Has any human been cloned? No one has ever cloned a human being. though scientists have cloned animals other than Dolly. Dolly was a false clone by this South Korean scientist who was published in the top scientific journals. Everyone thought he did it, but it was not done. His Dolly was fake, right? The whole thing was a hoax. Though scientists have cloned animals other than Dolly, including dogs, pigs, cows, horses, and cats, part of the reason is that cloning can introduce profound genetic errors which can result in early and painful deaths. This is February 22, 2017. Next question. How did life start? Many scientists believe that RNA, or something similar to RNA, was the first molecule on Earth to self-replicate and begin the process of evolution, Darwin's evolution, that led to more advanced forms of life, including human beings. This is July 30th, 2010, meaning they don't understand how it all started. They have a theory. Can you produce a child with sperm? For the first time, artificial embryos made without sperm or eggs have started to form. Notice he says, started to form live fetuses after being implanted in female mice. However, the embryos had some malformations, and we are still a long way from being able to make a human baby this way. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, it's all nonsense. So your homework is to find out what is DNA. You got a good idea here, and see exactly what they have done to imitate God and make a human being from DNA. Okay? This is important because you have to see how much the scientists are bluffing. They haven't found anything. They keep saying, "Oh, we're on the verge, we're on the cusp of, creating the first human being without any parents, and it'll be, we're going to make a lot of money from this." Right? It's all about money. Okay, are there any questions?
So, Maharaj, even when we look at computer programs, there is a software which executes some instructions, and then there is the algorithm, right? Yeah. And then there is the actual data structure. So, let's say a bank has to have a construct of accounts. So, they actually have the data. So, the DNA is like the data store.
Yes.
Of, okay, this is the way to, maybe this is the elements of the data, but then the actual program of who is interpreting it, they don't think about that. Because just like you can have a dead animal or dead person also with the same DNA, but then there is nothing processing it. So they're not going to
there are very little differences, but in the DNA,
yeah,
but with big effects.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. But so they give the same example as if like the evolution, that there is only small difference between the DNA of, let's say, whale and a human being.
Right.
And then they say that over time
0.1%.
Yeah. But I mean, we are a designer ourselves in computer programming,
yes,
whatever.
Yeah.
We do the same thing. If we want to create a lot of things, we just change few bits.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that those bits have changed by themselves. It's still somebody made a choice of what bits to use for what.
Of course. It's not, look, object-oriented programming, right? If you study it, it's a creation process from an idea. And how many people are involved in it? A lot of people. It's not just one person, right? And they're never perfect. That's why Bill Gates, he used to go to Las Vegas for the computer fair, right? With a new, what do you call that, the new operating system, right?
I think it was Windows 98 or something.
Yeah, right. And as soon as you started, it crashed. that means they worked. There were a lot. Object-oriented programming is to avoid human mistakes, right? And they followed it, and it still crashed, right? So they had to go back. It's very embarrassing, by the way, in front of all those people. Your brand new thing crashes. So they have to go back and find where all the mistakes are in the program. Right? And they're little mistakes, but it's enough to crash the whole program.
So something similar happened with Tesla. He introduced the Cybertruck, and then he said he's put some panels, the glasses that are unbreakable, and then he got some celebrity and he gave him some metal balls to throw. Apparently they tried before that many times in their trial runs, and then on the stage it broke the glass.
That's embarrassing. Okay, so you see, unless we educate our kids, they are just going to go with the flow, because they have no experience, right? Now this is experience now, what we're hearing. We have Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj's little book. It's a little book. It's less than 50 pages, but if you understand what's in this book, you can see through all the hobgoblin nonsense of the scientists. And they're expert at using words and phrases and coming up with theories, like Jeremy England, and people thought, this is exciting. If his theory works, then Darwinism is going to be validated. And it's all nonsense. They just come up with theories that they can't prove. And then when it's definitely debunked, then somebody comes up with another theory. So you go on another cycle of 5, 10, 20, 30 years of failure. And this is called hope against hope. Look that phrase up. Hope against hope. This is what the scientists are thriving on. Hope against hope. And we'll stop right there. And now we'll have our Guru Puja. So I'll give you these notes that I took, and then you can distribute it to the kids so they have a starting point, and then they can go from there. Now, did anybody do their homework? No? Okay. Maybe tomorrow? Okay. Homework is you should have received the booklet, right? Okay. And you want to give your opinion about the booklet. You don't have to do any research. You give your opinion about it and how you think it might be improved, or maybe it's a complete failure, or whatever. This is a new way of teaching Krishna consciousness and science together. Okay. What does it say, hope against hope?
It's clinging to a mere It's just clinging to a mere possibility. So there is no reality. But
so that's Jeremy England, right there. That's an explanation of him. It says, popular hypotheses credit a primordial soup, a bolt of lightning, and a colossal stroke of luck. But if a provocative new theory is correct, by Jeremy England, luck may have little to do with it. Instead, according to the physicist proposing the idea, the origin and subsequent evolution of life follows from the fundamental laws of nature and should be as unsurprising as rocks rolling downhill. This is complete nonsense, right? And if you look at Jeremy, you had never even heard of Jeremy England, right? He was supposed to come up with this great theory that would shake the whole world, and he failed. Yes.
Maharaj, another definition for this hope against hope. To hope very strongly that something will happen, although you know it is not likely.
Haribo. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
So the sun we're seeing is not the actual sun, is that?
No, it is. It is. No, because you have to understand the explanation they give. They say that molecules, there is air in space, right? Just like we explained how a cloud is formed. A cloud is formed because when the sun evaporates water from the ocean that has salt in it and everything, the molecules dissipate, they spread. And because they become lighter than air, they rise up. And that's how a cloud, we explained, has hundreds and millions of gallons of water. And it's kept in space and then is pushed by the air. And it can go hundreds and thousands of miles also. It's an engineering miracle, right? And then when the wind, let's say, slows down and the sun shines, right? Then the molecules come closer together and they fall down. And that's rain. You understand? So now we go to outer space. There's also air in outer space. But the molecules are much more diffused than on the Earth, right? And because of that, even though there's electromagnetic waves coming out of the sun, you don't see any light because you only see light when it's reflected from those little molecules, you see. But the distances between them is so great that you only see darkness. Your eyes can't pick up the light. That's why there's millions of suns, according to the scientists, right? So how come outer space is dark? There's only one sun. But there's, and remember yesterday I talked about the massive distances between the planets. And the space is huge. You can't imagine how big it is. And there is air in space, but the molecules are so dispersed that the electromagnetic waves just go and they're not reflected. Therefore, you can't see anything. You only see darkness. Isn't that interesting? Why is space dark? Did they ever talk about that in school? No. They know about it, but they're not going to talk about it because, you would have to get into a lot of details and you would see that, wait a minute, this didn't happen by accident, all this stuff, Haribol. Yes, yeah. The others are not suns, they're stars or they're planets. He's the source of all of it. And he's a jiva, like you and me. Imagine how powerful he became by practicing Krishna consciousness. Every one of us has the potential to become a Vivaswan or Surya or Brahma or Varuna or, we have that potential. We don't realize what our potential is. And that's not our real, and the full potential. Full potential is you go back to Godhead with an eternal body. People say, oh, no, this is all, it's not true. It is true, but you have to believe it. You have to have some faith. You can only have that faith when you associate with people who have faith. You keep associating with people who don't have faith, then you'll lose all faith in Krishna. And I'll show you where Prabhupada says association is the most important thing. It's even more important than chanting Hare Krishna. Because if you associate with devotees, you will chant Hare Krishna. And if you don't associate with Krishna, with devotees, you'll stop chanting Hare Krishna eventually. Yeah. Haribol. If you don't teach your kids this, it's a type of abuse. I'm telling you right now. It's a type of abuse of the child. You're letting them become misled totally.
So whereas there are innumerable universes, each universe only has one sun. Is that right?
Sounds like it. I would have to find a direct quote about that, but yeah, it seems like that. Yeah. Just imagine how powerful the sun is. And we only get a very little bit, as Bhakti Swarup Damodar explained, very little bit of that energy. And that's more than all the factories with all their nuclear power and petroleum energy and wind energy, everything. It's nothing compared to that little bit of energy we get from the sun every day. We don't understand the breadth and extension and of the universe. It's incredible, you know. Then we realize how insignificant we are, and yet we claim so is God, right? And then we claim that, you know, oh, Elon Musk is a great guy. You know, he's nothing. He's nothing at all. He's just a fake, you know. And he'll also get old and die, right? Take birth probably in Africa as a bug. Then it'll be more nothing like that. Haribo. Okay, let's have it. All kids should read this book. No. I mean, it might be out of print, but you can get it on the internet. What's good is it's a short book. You can read it like in an hour. But you'd have to go over it carefully because he gives quotes from Bhagavad Gita. You see, he doesn't give quotes from anything else, just Bhagavad Gita. You get a much deeper understanding of Bhagavad Gita.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandho moi savadana mate Jahara prasade bai e bhava toriya jai
Janara prasade
Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te
Krishna prapti hoya hoite
Guru mukha padma vakya chitite koriya kya
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevam
Arana khari hamane asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane rati aise utama gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Jai prasade pure sarva asha
He Prasade Bure Sarva
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Shudan Dil Jai Janame Janme Prabhu Se
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudan Dil Jai Janame Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
Divya Gyani Prakasita Sita
Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinasha jate.
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 Vede gai jahara charita.
Vede gai janara charita.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu.
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu.
Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu.
Lokenath Lokera Jivana.
Lokenath Lokera Jivana.
Ha ha Prabhu Karo Doya Deho More Pada Chaya.
Prabhu Kora Doya Deya More Pada Chaya.
Ha ha Prabhu Karo Doya Deho More Pada Chaya.
Prabhu Kora Doya Deya More Pada Chaya.
Ebe jas Goshuk Tribhuvana.
Ebeyas Shakti Bhuvana.
Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitagara Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitagara Hari Bol.
Nitagora Haribo, 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 Nitagora Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagachasta Satara Shri Shimal. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Yamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavan ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Visatari.
The lotus
Those
feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and Master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada.